Welcome to part two of the podcast. Talking with Sam again about the GameStop fiasco and everything behind it. Let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoy. Cheers. Part two.
Yes, part two. Here we go. Moving on from Dolly.
Yeah, I just thought it would be interesting to talk about some of the events, recent events. It doesn't feel like a long year. There's a lot that's happened since we last talked, and I think some of the things we talked about last time on the episode. We were talking about cyberpunk and
Yeah,
a few different sort of elements.
many predictions you
Yeah,
might say.
yeah.
About
So I really wanted to talk about the GameStop thing, right? Just because
yeah,
it's like, I mean, this feels like a not historic, it feels like a
no,
changing
yeah.
tide. Yeah, it's
I guess historic, I would say, because it changes the game, the stock market.
yeah. Does it? I mean, it's too early days to sort of say like what
Why?
sort of crackdowns but I mean, it definitely has sparked some sort of imagination and something in people.
Well, I I don't know why you're holding back on it. It's proof of something, and once you have proof of something, now you're forever on the next side of it.
Yeah.
So we have proof that Reddit can influence the stock market pretty significantly,
Mm.
and that's never happened before. But now that proof is there, and I guess we've seen perhaps other forms of this where Elon Musk does a random tweet and it causes the stock price of a.
Have you seen him in the Wall Street Bets like Discord channel? Like he's in there and it's just blowing up.
No,
It's crazy. It's
I'm
just
sure
like
they'd show him a lot of love. Well, he's the world's richest man now.
yeah.
But yeah, a random tweet from him.
That also has to do with retail investors, right? Like these Robin Hooders who are actually, because a lot of people were trying to short Tesla, right?
Yeah, they got rolled in the end.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's revenge against the short sellers to some degree, and I'm not sure anyone will miss them when they're gone.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, people haven't forgotten the GFC, right?
Yeah.
People are still kind of going, what, right? Like you're allowed to do that, or how did you do that, sort of thing? And
People are hurt and remain bitter and frustrated about how the hedge fund traders weren't really punished for bringing the world economy to the brink like that. They got away with it. They were happy and fine. So there's a wellspring of anger there that I think got tapped into. The people are angry, and uniting to hurt the hedge funds was a good enough reason to unite people to buy a stock. And this sense of unfairness. So, this uniting force people have, I think, is the ability to recognize what's fair versus unfair to a degree. Like, we all form a view on that. And so, when people see, oh, this billionaire hedge fund, they're trying to short a company into the ground. They've sold 130% of its stock. They think, well, that's unfair. You're not playing fair. And, everyone who sees it feels it and wants to do something about it. And seeing that force.
yeah, it's a David and Goliath story. And in the end, like the hedge funds are, their money is supposed to be investors' money, right? Like it's not just that where did that come from? That's people's savings. That's people's
superannuations.
yeah. But like people like the it's been shown that now like the institutions are like the veil is sort of almost been lifted a bit, where people are kind of realizing that, oh no, these institutions are going to push back and they're going to pull all the strings and use all the tricks in their bag to because what, it was like 70 billion or something that they've currently lost in
short sellers
just to make up their positions, right?
So yeah, apparently short selling has been an expensive proposition in this last year. They've so far lost 70 billion doing short selling. So um, part of it is the enormous risk in that there is no limit to how high a stock price might go that you're apparently now going to be forced to buy. So that's, I think, called naked short selling, when you've got no ceiling to your potential losses if things get bad enough. And that's the really devastating part. The stock price can just go up, up, up. And there you are. You've already committed to buying it in advance.
Yeah, I mean, well, people are, there is this thing that is just creating volatility, and it's this pump and dump sort of thing. But like, there is also a lot of fundamentals that go on in Wall Street, and the idea or the narrative that they're trying to push is that these retailers, they're not sophisticated investors. They haven't done their research, and that's true for a lot of, especially now that the hype sort of kicked in. But the people who are originally putting these positions in, they've kind of worked it out a bit, right? They might not have the connections or the institutional backing to be able to get a certain leverage on anything. But they're like, okay, well, we can move the market if we just get bands again. Like, it's I don't know. It's exciting. It's a
Well, I think to some degree it's like a growth in consciousness of the internet, when the internet wakes up and realizes what it can do. And
class
so,
consciousness, right? Like, this is what, like, people are. We've been in lockdown for how long, and a lot of these the myths that people have been selling us are like just falling apart, and everyone just goes, well,
well,
okay, well,
like, I don't think it's a class thing necessarily. I think it's a fair versus unfair thing.
but I mean, that is pretty much class consciousness, right? Like, people who own the means to this, are
No,
able to just
well,
exploit it, and they do, because you saw what happened with Melvin Capital. Like, they're owned by Citadel or whatever, and or 40% of their revenue, and now Robinhood, they own a large percentage of Robinhood as well. So they've just turned off, buying.
so that's one part
That's
of the
major collusion,
story.
right? That is.
Right. There's the part where they struggle to try to regulate this market force, what have you. But I think perhaps the bigger part is the fact that the internet has woken up to its capacity to be this market force.
Yeah, and they have nothing to lose. It's kind of like, too too big to fail. This is the opposite. It's like too small to fail.
Well, any of them have the ability to lose what their investment is, but it's the realization of many people that they can work as a team and end up being, in fact, quite influential as a team. And I think that sort of thing will continue to grow. So
It'll be very interesting to see where this heads.
yeah, the capacity for vast numbers of people to form these alliances and to have a kind of meta consciousness playing out there. Yeah, I think that will continue to grow.
But also the symbolism of it as well is very kind of, because it's. I mean, you can do fundamentals on that they, like, these companies are actually going to transition. They're putting effort in to actually move onto like an online sort of market, or like do whatever it takes to. But also there's kind of like this nostalgia, and also like a memeified kind of, it's like people are sort of questioning like the inherent value of markets, right? Like, what are you actually, what are you actually owning? Like, where is the value in it? What is it based on?
Right. Yeah, the stock market itself. Well, I mean, it's a very volatile time with the price of Bitcoin shooting around, and
And people have like moved to Dogecoin right now, and it's sort of like that's just a gimmick sort of thing. But then you kind of like,
well, there's a lot of volatility in the cryptocurrencies. And it's probably a little to do with how Biden is going to spend a few trillion US dollars stimulating the US economy, and that will drive up inflation of the US dollar, which means money will be trying to flow out of the US dollar to escape that inflation.
Yeah.
Where does it go? Some probably into cryptocurrency.
I mean, yeah, I suppose it's good to diversify your portfolio. Um, but yeah, I mean, well, like talking about economics, like moving away from the gold standard, that really started a lot of this, right? You know, like the Austrian school, like Hayek and that. Once that happened, everyone was like, okay, well, what is the money? What is fiat money based on? What is any of this based on? It's like based on like bonds or something, and that's based on like the stability of a government and the ability to
Yeah,
enforce it through like violence, through like military, just being able to like not fall over sort of thing. So
I guess so. Yeah. So, I mean, in the end, there's nothing behind money other than agreements per se. But
like complete social constructions. And
yes, that's right. That's part of life's big mystery there. Uh, sure. Hmm. Well, people, it's still a treasure. It seems to strive for that the market works very hard on.
But what these people seem to be striving for is like nostalgia and this sort of wanting of a better time. Like this time when they they remember and they enjoy and they look back with fondness, sort of thing. And the companies that they think have been given like the short end of the stick.
Hmm. Well, this I don't know how far you can go with nostalgia. Time doesn't really go backwards; it only goes forwards. Um, so yeah, people. I mean, people try to use nostalgia to market products to you, but that's just like an attack vector. Um, yeah, I I think it. Everyone should move on from old ways that don't work and roll with life and flow with it.
Yeah. So this is,
Mm.
I mean, people talk about old money and new money, sort of thing. Actually, I watched I mean, it's a book originally, Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century sort of thing. But there's a doco out, and it's more accessible, talking about wealth,
Mm-hmm.
and capital in the 21st century,
Mm-hmm.
basically, right? Uh, and it's most transition of money these days. It's just inheritance, sort of thing. I think
Right.
there's like
Yeah.
in the next, I forget the figures, like 20 years, it's going to be like $70 trillion. That's like
Flowing down.
flowing down, and that all just goes into investing and making more, sort of thing. So like that is why sort of inequality is becoming such a thing. It's this weird thing where it's like globally inequality is going down, but
Mm.
individually in each sort of country,
It goes up.
it goes up, and
Yeah.
and you sort of see that in, and you're sort of thinking, that's probably not sustainable. People are going to look at that and go, okay, you
Yeah.
can do all your philanthropy you want, but people are going to find ways. It's
Yeah. If people are desperate, then they'll do anything.
um, yeah. So I mean, sort of talking about that, his prescription, I think, is a progressive wealth tax. Um, like,
How does it work?
oh, also sort of progressively, the more you earn, you'll be taxed higher, sort of thing, and
Okay.
like incrementally you sort of slow that in. You just don't go there. Like you set up stoppages, and you can basically create a way to smooth that. I mean, not every country in the world or government in the world is going to immediately go, let's do
Mm.
that. How do you how
Yeah.
do you even get close to that without all this sort of, you can look at the moment of, as soon as people feel like their their nest egg is threatened, that
They'll abandon something.
they'll use all leverages of power they can
Yeah.
possibly do. Like $70 billion is like
Yeah.
a fair bit, and they're gonna,
For sure.
if they have those, so institutional power is still a very real thing. So
Definitely. And Presumably, it always will be, being the nature of institutional power.
But like, yeah, the sort of verticality of it. And another interesting thing, right? Like the inauguration, it was supposed to be this historic thing, but everyone, what did everyone focus on, right? Like that Bernie meme, the probably the
Yeah,
world's most famous socialist, right?
it's quite strange.
People are really thinking in these horizontal terms these days.
Yeah, I don't really get it. Um, it, there's a lot of important stuff out there, but so much attention was given to Bernie's kitten mittens. Um, yeah, oh well, yeah, maybe we're starved for content now that Trump is no longer allowed on Twitter.
Yeah, well, there is that attention vacuum, right? Like, what else do we talk about?
Mm.
um, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be, and if in some ways it can be like benign or even possibly just silly, right? That's
Mm.
um,
Well, I don't think we need to miss the good old days where stand-up comedy was a lot easier, because the president was more the clown. That's all right. We'll have plenty to talk about. Um, yeah, I mean, uh, the world is changing so quickly. So yeah, 2021 will be a interesting year.
we're only like 3 weeks in. This is crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many policies that are going to be reversed this year and that kind of thing, and the vaccine will be coming out,
Well,
and
that's it, and um, yeah, like that were. Remember when people were like, I can't wait till this is over, and then it's sort of the
mm,
slow realization that no, this is a long haul sort of thing, and
that's
now
right.
by the time like is sort of complete rollout or complete coverage of everyone, it's just going to be like, okay, what now, right?
Yeah, very slow, so that the transport industry is not going to recover anytime soon.
Hopefully, there's a lot of innovation that comes out of it.
Yeah, well, we're seeing the importance of aging, for starters, on how that affects mortality. But yeah, there's certainly been a lot of biotech research investment.
Yeah, like when there's a very significant demand for it, things get done.
Yeah,
Yeah, because like it's unheard of, it's unprecedented to actually create a vaccine that quickly, and so yeah,
that's
of
right.
course people are cautious of that. Actually, I was looking at yeah, like I think UQ actually came out with a good candidate for a vaccine sort of thing,
Oh, great.
but it had like bits of the HIV virus in it. And
Uh,
so for a while you would test positive for HIV, and I think like
gosh.
the marketing team would probably be like, yeah, look, I think we're gonna like, yeah,
Mm,
we're not gonna be big on that,
it's a
right?
tricky one.
Like I
Yeah.
mean, but like look, it was probably really really effective, right? But it's just
Hmm. Well, there's so many different ways to attempt to make vaccines now. So it's a shifting technology, the different ways we can interact with cells. We're getting more and more advanced at it. Um, yeah.
so what's the leading one is like the Pfizer one, which is like the mRNA.
Yeah, that's the main one. Um, I guess generally it's to do with into creating types of protein, or creating the plans that create the types of proteins, or interfering with the type of protein, that kind of thing. So just recently they've found what seems like a very good way to suppress tumor growth, and that involves interfering with a particular type of protein. So yeah, like viruses are made out of proteins, and so is a lot of the body's machinery. And so, with the right proteins, you can get very sort of specific hooks and keys and locks and that kind of thing. So, yeah, if you're targeting something specific, you can create a custom response. Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Can they do cancer next, right? I mean, the thing is with cancer is like, uh,
They can, and
so many like it's not just one type. You know, it's not just
that's
one.
right.
I mean, I guess there's different strains, but it's still
Many different
like
strains.
um, it's still, is it molecular? No, it's more genetic, right? It's
Well, genetics can have an influence, but I mean, there's a molecular component to it.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Ultimately, it's the certain what you might call safeguards from a cancer cell to prevent it from rapidly dividing and get broken. And they get broken enough that in a way that's not detected by the body as well. So because we've got trillions of cells, ultimately cancer occurs all the time as cells go rogue, but they just get detected and wiped out. So it's the very tricky type of cancer that works out how to multiply, but to do so in a way that isn't detected by the body. And that's the one that tends to worry us. But nevertheless, there are common patterns to be found in how to deal with them. So I think we're actually going to see an explosion of really powerful treatments against cancer.
Can machine learning have a big play? I mean, apart from diagnosis, and I mean drug discovery as well is a big thing. But
Yeah. Well, drug discovery is part of it. There's a recent model out, I believe, called AlphaFold.
yes, which is I think is going to be like a candidate for the first machine learning model to win a Nobel Prize,
Whoa.
right? Like surely, like it is. That is a huge achievement. That's ridiculously huge.
Yeah, well, we're seemingly going to get better and better at modeling the interactions of particles and proteins and how things move around and that kind of stuff. And so that'll be quite helpful for drug discovery. Yeah. Well, machine learning has its part to play in this longevity process. For various forms of data analysis, you'll maybe need a deep neural network or something like that.
What is AlphaFold actually? What is that used? Do you know?
I don't know. No.
It would be because what is the type of data? It is the. I mean, you see the graph. It's like these 3D protein folding kind of. So I'm assuming.
It could be perhaps a sequence, because I mean, often there's there's a genetic sequence for the process of protein creation.
But there were it was entered in that competition, right? That was started like ages and ages ago because there was a horrible with names. Who was the like a geneticist or
We
someone?
don't need to keep searching for names.
It was the guy who sort of basically sort of said, look, possibly computationally these could be solved like 50 years ago or something, and then that started the search for these models that could actually do protein folding
Hmm.
well, and up until AlphaFold, it was still only about like 50% sort of thing, right? And they just like obliterated the competition in
Right.
like they were like
Hmm.
93 sort of average, or and you're just like, wow, that is
Bam.
a
Hmm.
very good result.
Yeah. Well, I don't know necessarily its exact output, but generally DNA is made up of a system of letters, right, with very four kinds of symbols. So
Gotta go. Like,
yeah, so maybe it's outputting that kind of stream, perhaps,
I suppose that's like a pretty, yeah, I mean, pretty tractable problem if you think about it. And
or maybe the output is angles and lengths. I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, machine learning has a big part to play in our biological sciences of longevity, for sure. Hmm.
yeah, so maybe like, I mean, talking about like going back to GameStop sort of thing, invest in medical stocks, right? Like,
Uh,
you can live in nostalgia, and I suppose that's not exactly doesn't have the hype. You're just like, these are just like fundamentals if you want to.
So you're trying to work out what to invest in?
I'm just trying to tie this in with the original premise of that.
Ah, there's not necessarily the ability to tie all these connections together. Um, they they're they are what they are. Um, hmm. Well, I think it is a historical moment. I don't think there is doubt personally about whether the GameStop moment is historical because it's the internet waking up and realizing its newfound power.
Yeah, and so they should, right? Like, like they've sort of, I mean, a lot of people feel like they've been ripped off, and they've been given the short end of the stick, and they're being, actively, like suppressed,
Mm.
and they're, to get a voice. There's only so much people can sort of take until they're, like take action, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this was it a little out of left field, sort of thing. No one really sort of kind of expected it, but I mean, you kind of look back and you sort of think, okay, but like, I mean, you sort of thinking like, how can institution, because it possibly can be regulated, like, this isn't going to be, I mean, I'm not sure about the next move of what they're going to take, but are they going to, like, have serious regulations on retail investors now that they're.
Well, they're probably going to try, like, because they don't want to be paying out billions. Yeah, they'll squirm around and try. That'll be the politics of it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I'm not sure what they'll succeed at accomplishing. It might be hard because it wouldn't really be a free market then.
exactly. It's like, it's free until, the poor people start winning, kind of. I mean, that's the narrative that Reddit's going with.
Yeah, that's right. Um, and it would seem that way because they definitely are talking about regulation now.
But I mean, a lot of what is, yeah, regulating who, sort of thing, right? Like, uh, this wasn't ever a thing when, in 2008. So, you know,
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have plans to regulate anyone, so it's not my problem. Uh, they they can try, maybe. Yeah, I don't know that they'll succeed though. Uh, yeah, there's the floundering that they'll do to to try to prevent this from being a threat to them. Uh, but yeah, I guess we'll see how the history plays out there if there are new rules.
yeah, because it is, like, I mean, really competitive, obviously, like, and then it's really, uh it's can be some, like, a bloodbath sometimes, right? Like, people are out to actively, um you know to just leverage their power, and kind of like make as much as they can, sort of thing. um
It would seem that way.
I
That's
mean,
why we're
well,
seeing these aggressive short selling positions.
but I mean, that's been like since forever, sort of thing, but yeah, I still don't get the like, understand short selling. Like, how can you sell something that isn't there, right? Like, 130% of a
Yeah.
stock, like.
Well, with the promise to buy it later.
Yeah, so, but that's just a promise. How is that tangible? Like,
If it's in a contract,
yeah,
then you've got that as much as that contract is worth.
just seems like people just make up stuff, and then, like, who actually enforces it, or what's it
Well,
based on?
yeah.
Like,
There's a whole lot of making it up as they go. That's for sure. Uh, yeah. Well, we're now seeing the power of Reddit unfold for stock price manipulation.
yeah, but at the moment it's not taken seriously because it's sort of memeified, or it's, like, um uh I suppose, it's not also a boring, like, finance is quite,
Mm,
like, guarded, or the barriers to entry are very high, because,
yeah.
there's a lot of technical jargon, there's a lot of ways of not understanding it, which prevents people just retail investors from getting involved because they just feel like dumbfounded or bamboozled because they're not able to sort of, it's not accessible to them. And that's what Wall Street is really good at, is just sort of being elitist through like obfuscating the actual underlying fundamental principles that are going on.
Well, they have their hands on the apps, and therefore the levers and cogs and gears of power there for trading. So if you can turn off the capacity for trading in your platform and that kind of thing for when it suits you, then yeah, you're rigging the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I still, it's gonna be very interesting to see how this plays out. And I'm very much looking forward to kind of learning a lot as well. I've been kind of like reading up a bit about it and trying to understand what I can.
It sounds that way, yeah.
And I think it's piqued a lot of popular interest as well, because as soon as
has.
you like say someone's made 40 million or whatever on a trade, that creates a gold rush, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is how the West was, or at least America was made. Even Australia, like the gold rush,
That's it.
It was about profiteering, like these people who found a new world and a new life with the promise of
That's it, a new frontier.
There's this idea of frontier theory where it was like cowboys and the people who were sought out, like high risk sort of adventure, and that's what like a lot of.
I tend to agree.
And the taming of the West came from like women sort of coming in and actually sort of like having families and then instilling some sort of responsibility to these high risk people.
Yeah. Well, I tend to think guys are often quite high risk, whereas women will be less so. So yeah, it's not bad for us to be different from each other. But that's why there's so much fascination in gambling, and just wild gambling and pure speculation, because guys are down for a risky proposition if it's the possibility to make free money.
Yeah, I mean, there are fundamentals involved though. That's the thing, it's never a sure thing, but
yeah. Even more so when it's the stock market. It's
yeah. But hedge funds and like these people, they're supposed to be too big to fail, right? When they make risky decisions and just get bailed out, it's like, okay, well, like.
Well, I don't think many hedge funds get bailed out.
Okay, well, the banks do, but
Yeah. Yeah, well, we will see how it plays out, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be super, super interesting.
Hmm.
Anyway, all right. I think that's good. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Drew.
All right,
Good night,
cheers.
folks.
Peace out.